Utale Vimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamine Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Taschtadishtharini Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Radhanata Radha Radhanata Radhe Jaya Radha Krishna Radha Krishna Radhe Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Gurudev Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Page 1, please, dear devotees. Bhagavad Gita as it is, introduction. Om Ajnanati Mirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrinda Vrindeshwari Trishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhatta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Welcome, dear devotees, once again. Shalina Mataji, please read for us.
Hare Krishna. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. When will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet? I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master and unto the feet of all Vaishnavas. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami, along with his elder brother Sanatana Goswami, as well as Raghunatha Dasa and Raghunatha Bhatta, Gopala Bhatta, and Srila Jiva Goswami. I offer my respectful obeisances to Lord Krishna Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, along with Advaita Acharya, Gadadhara, Srivasa, and other associates. I offer my respectful obeisances to Srimati Radharani and Sri Krishna, along with their associates Sri Lalita and Vishaka. O my dear Krishna, you are the friend of the distressed and the source of creation. You are the master of the gopis and the lover of Radharani. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I offer my respects to Radharani, whose bodily complexion is like molten gold and who is the queen of Vrindavana. You are the daughter of King Vrishabhanu, and you are very dear to Lord Krishna. I offer my respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They can fulfill the desires of everyone, just like desire trees, and they are full of compassion for the fallen souls. I offer my respectful obeisances to Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita, Gadadhara, Sri Vasha, and all others in the line of devotion. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Shalina Mataji. So, welcome to, we've got a new person on our online group today. It's Priscilla Mataji. So let's welcome Priscilla Mataji. Thank you for joining us. Priscilla Mataji used to follow the classes at offline, the recording, and I see she's managed to join today. So that's very nice. Nice to have her. So last week we spoke, we said we're going to have a discussion session today. How many of you all have prepared it? It's up here on my screen, the topics. Did anybody prepare anything to present? Haribo? Paramatma Prabhu? Did you prepare anything?
No, I was just thinking about the violence part.
Yes,
but
okay.
I didn't go over the others. No, thanks. Sorry, Maji.
That's fine. No, then you can talk on that now. That's fine. When is violence justified? Or do you all want to let's just go through maybe some verses first for today, at least 2 verses, and then we go into our discussion.
That would be nice. Yeah. I like this. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we'll just continue with chapter 4, verse 23. Okay. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Gata Sangasya Muktasya Nanavastita Chetasaha Yajnayacharataha Karma Samagram Pravilayate. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. The work of a man who is unattached to the modes of material nature and who is fully situated in transcendental knowledge merges entirely into transcendence. This is what the Lord is saying. And Srila Prabhupada explains as follows in his purport. Becoming fully Krishna conscious, one is freed from all dualities and thus is freed from the contaminations of material modes. He can become liberated because he knows his constitutional position in relationship with Krishna, and thus his mind cannot be drawn from Krishna consciousness. Consequently, whatever he does for Krishna, who is the primeval Vishnu. Therefore, all his works are technically sacrifices, because sacrifice aims at satisfying the Supreme Person Vishnu, or Krishna. The resultant reactions to all such work certainly merge into transcendence, and one does not suffer material effects. So Krishna started speaking to us about this 2 weeks ago. And last week, we went into detail about sacrificing all your actions to, or rather dovetailing all your activities to Krishna consciousness, right? To act in Krishna consciousness means to engage in what? To engage in devotional service. Devotional service means whatever you do for Krishna. That's what it is. This is what Prabhupada is elaborating on in this purport. And he says, once you're situated in that kind of consciousness, then the modes of material nature will not affect you. You will not suffer the effects of material nature. So the 3 modes are goodness, passion, and ignorance, as we spoke about previously. If you want to avoid these 3 modes, dovetail everything into Krishna consciousness. Do not attach your, do not have any attachment to the results of your fruits. Whatever you do, do it for the pleasure of Krishna. That's what it means. Okay, so next verse. Anybody wants to read this verse? Veronica?
Hare Krishna. Which verse is that?
24.
Okay. Okay. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Brahma. Also, must I read also the Sanskrit version?
Yes, please.
Okay. Brahma Panam Brahma Hadir Brahma Mago Brahmana Hutam Brahmeva Tena Gantavyam Brahma Karma Samadhina. A person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities in which the consummation of is absolute, and that which is offered is of the same spiritual nature. How activities in Krishna consciousness can lead one ultimately to the spiritual goal is described here. There are various activities in Krishna consciousness, and all of them will be described in the following verses. But for the present, just the principle of Krishna consciousness is described. A conditioned soul entangled in material contamination is sure to act in the material atmosphere, and yet he has to get out of such an environment. The process by which the conditioned soul can get out of the material atmosphere is Krishna consciousness. For example, a patient who is suffering from a disorder of the bowels due to overindulgence in milk products is cured by another milk product, namely curds. The materially absorbed conditioned soul can be cured by Krishna consciousness as set forth here in the Gita. This process is generally known as yajna or activity sacrifices. Yajna or activity sacrifices, similarly meant for the satisfaction of Vishnu or Krishna. The more the activities of the material world are performed in Krishna consciousness or for Vishnu only, the more the atmosphere becomes spiritualized, spiritualized by complete absorption. The word Brahman, means spiritual. The Lord is spiritual, and the rays of his Jyoti, but when the Jyoti is discovered by illusion, Maya, or sense gratification, it is called material. This material veil can be removed at once by Krishna. Thus, the offering for the sake of Krishna consciousness, the consuming agent of such an offering or contribution, the process of consumption, the contributor, and the result are all combined together, Brahman, or the absolute truth. Hare Krishna. Sorry about that. I didn't have my glasses. Hare Bol.
Okay, I think there's a lot of interference as well. You were breaking up a bit, Veronica Mataji, but it's fine. We'll go through it quickly again. Okay, so here Krishna says, let me just mute here. Okay, right, that's clear then. Okay, so Krishna is saying a person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, is sure to attain what? Spiritual kingdom. Now that is our goal, isn't it? The goal of the soul, we spoke about as well. The goal of the soul is to attain his spiritual identity and to get out of this entanglement of the repeated cycle of birth and death and reach the spiritual kingdom of God, Goloka Vrindavan, so that he's never born again and he never goes through this fourfold miseries of life, which is birth, death, old age, and disease. So there's a process for that. Krishna says there's a process for that. Our activities in Krishna consciousness can lead one ultimately to this spiritual goal. Prabhupada says is described here. And there's a nice analogy used here as well. The process by which the conditioned soul can get out of the material atmosphere is called Krishna consciousness, right? We said that. For example, a patient who is suffering from a disorder of the bowels due to overindulgence in milk products is cured by another milk product, namely curds. So likewise, the materially absorbed conditioned soul can be cured by Krishna consciousness. How? By doing activities that may look material in nature, but because you are dovetailing it to God, to Krishna, it is no longer the material platform. So the being bound in this material world, the cure for that is engaging in those activities, but only it won't be a material activity. It may seem like a material activity, but you are dovetailing it to, you are offering it rather to Krishna. So there's no tainting of those activities, will not be attached to the material effects, right? So this process that is being spoken about here is generally known as yajna. Yajna means a sacrifice. You've heard of yajna, people call it, in this day and age, people do yajnas, they call it havan, right? Fire sacrifice, yajnas. But there is a sacrifice, and what is the purpose of these sacrifices? It is meant purely for the satisfaction of Vishnu or Krishna, not for any business deals, that I am doing this yajna, this sacrifice, because I want peace, I want harmony, I want material progress, I want promotions in my job, I want my children to be successful. All that falls into place when you become a devotee of Krishna, automatically. So the aim of any of these yajnas should be solely for the satisfaction of Krishna. And the yajna prescribed in this day and age, in Kali Yuga, is what? Sankirtan yajna, the chanting of the holy names. It is said so in our scriptures. Lord Chaitanya came, Krishna himself came in the form of Lord Chaitanya and preached the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And he opened it to everybody. You see, previously in India predominantly, there was the system going on, caste Brahmin system. And when in the time when Lord Chaitanya appeared, the caste Brahmins gave the non-Brahmins a hard time in the sense that they didn't allow them to do certain rituals. They didn't allow them to even chant mantras or anything of that sort. So when Lord Chaitanya came, he specifically gave this mantra, this Hare Krishna Mahamantra, to everybody alike, whether you were a Brahmin, a Kshatriya, a Vaishya, a Shudra, or anything, anybody. He gave it to anyone and everybody and said that everybody is eligible to chant this Mahamantra. And by chanting this Mahamantra, which is a prescribed yajna for this day and age Kali Yuga, you will find advancement in the spiritual path and eventually reach your goal of going back home, back to Godhead, to Sri Dham Goloka Vrindavan, where there's no repeated birth and death. So this yajna or activities or sacrifices here, we must know that it refers to our chanting, right? And kirtan. So the more activities of the material world are performed in Krishna consciousness or for Vishnu only, the more the atmosphere becomes spiritualized by complete absorption. Okay? The more you engage in this Krishna conscious activities in this material world, the more everything becomes spiritual. So you become materially detached and spiritually attached. And that is the goal. So we speak about the Jyotir. Jyotir is the effulgence of Krishna. And that effulgence is covered by Maya. Maya is illusion. And Maya comes in the form of sense gratification. And this veil, this material veil, or this Maya can only be removed by Krishna consciousness. Oh, there's a little bit more. Let me read this. The absolute truth covered by Maya is called matter. Matter dovetailed for the cause of the absolute truth gains its spiritual quality. Krishna consciousness is the process of covering the illusory consciousness into Brahman, or the Supreme. When the mind is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, it is said to be in samadhi or trance. Anything done in such transcendental consciousness is called yajna or sacrifice for the absolute, for the Lord. In that condition, the spiritual consciousness, the contributor, the contribution, the consumption, the performer or leader of the performance, and the result of or ultimate gain, everything becomes one in the absolute, the Supreme Brahman. That is the method of Krishna consciousness. And what's our method? To spiritualize our activities is devotional service. Whatever you eat, offer to me, Krishna says. Whatever actions you do it for me. Think of me. All these verses we will come across later in the Bhagavad Gita. Think of me, take refuge in me, become my devotee. And I will take care of you. Okay, so now it is 7:25. I think we should go into our discussion session. If we have time, we will do the other two verses for today. Right. So just to fill our newcomers in, we've given some topics last week, and these topics cover predominantly chapter 2. Chapter 2 is the summary of the Bhagavad Gita, so it touches base on various aspects of the entire Bhagavad Gita. It's the contents summarized. And there's very salient points there which I picked out, and I thought it would be nice if we just discussed it on an open platform for all our benefits. So if anybody wants to contribute, anybody has prepared, feel free to do so. We can start with Paramatma Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Mataji, I was thinking that I think violence was justified when Krishna says it's justified.
Yeah.
So, because Krishna instructed Arjuna to fight in the battlefield. And then also earlier in the Bhagavad Gita, we covered the 6 types of aggressors. So I think that's a reason why violence is justified. But that is by the Kshatriyas to do, yeah.
Yeah. So what are the 6 types of aggressors, Paramatma Prabhu, just for the benefit of everybody else? Can you remember them?
Yeah, I just looked at Google Namaji to refresh my memory. It says the poison giver, one who sets fire to the house, one who attacks with deadly weapons, one who plunders riches, one who occupies another's land, and one who kidnaps a wife.
And we see this happening in this day and age. Correct. Lots of that. We read them in the news. So we can actually relate to what Krishna is saying, isn't it? The 6 aggressors. So when is violence justified? So Krishna says, when these kind of things happen, then violence is justified, because violence is now being used to subdue the aggressors, right? But it doesn't mean that we can now take law into our own hands if we have to relate it personally in this day and age. Okay, but yes, back in the Vedic culture, this kind of thing happened. Then the Kshatris came into place, and they fought wars and got everything up to par again. And this was one of the reasons why Krishna said, stand up, Arjuna, and fight. And he wanted Arjuna to fight in this war. Okay, so anything else, Paramatma Prabhu?
No, that's about it. Thank you so much, Mataji.
Okay, who else prepared on this topic here? When is violence justified? Anybody
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Else prepared on this one?
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Rina?
I didn't really prepare anything, but I think violence can also be justified when dharma is to be restored.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. That's the whole purpose of Bhagavad Gita, right? Shalina Mataji? So stay
Correct.
with us.
Ji.
Just brief a little bit why this war was fought.
The war
Before
was
Bhagavad Gita took place, what happened? Very brief.
so
Right? Okay, go for it.
So before Bhagavad Gita started, Arjuna and his family had this palatial kingdom, and their cousins, the Kauravas, robbed them of the kingdom in a gambling match that was set to go against the Pandavas, and they also embarrassed Arjuna's wife during many of their disagreements that were that lasted over a long period of time. And that is how the Bhagavad Gita came to be.
So Paramatma Prabhu spoke about aggressors, right?
Yes.
6 types of aggressors he mentioned. Can you see any of the aggressors fitting into this whole picture here in the Bhagavad Gita, to the extent that now Krishna had to ask for this war to take place?
Yes.
Huh? What happened? Didn't they steal land? Duryodhana and Pati, cousins, the Kauravas, the cousins of the Pandavas, they were robbing the Pandavas of their rightful kingdom. The kingdom was actually meant to be handed to King Yudhishthir and his brothers. They were the rightful heirs to the throne. But King Dhritarashtra, the blind king, wanted it for his own son Duryodhana, for his sons. And that was wrong. So it's like you're stealing land, you're stealing the kingdom from, basically stealing the kingdom, right? That's incorrect. So that's an aggressor. Krishna says, what do we do with aggressors? We have to apply violence. So this kind of violence is not violence where I'm going to kill you, I'm going to shoot you to take your belongings, possibly. This violence is to establish the principles of dharma. Right? Dharma samstapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Krishna says, I appear in this age, millennium after millennium, for what? To establish the principles of dharma, the principles of righteousness. Okay, so I'm not going to say more on that. Let's hear from others. Who else has prepared on any of the topics? Feel free to unmute and speak on it. Even if you didn't prepare and you want to contribute, please do so.
Hare Krishna. I was thinking about reference 2.611, purpose of how the general principles drawn from Arjuna's dilemma are relevant to your own practice.
Okay.
Yeah. So I didn't prepare.
Okay. Sorry. 1 second. 1 second, Veronica Mataji. For everybody else who, to the benefit of others who were not present last week, the references are on up on my screen. Veronica Mataji is talking about chapter 2, verses 6 and 11, or 6 to 11. So if you want to reference it while she's talking, you may do so. Carry on, Veronica.
Yeah, so how the general principles drawn from Arjuna's dilemma relevant to our own practice. I thought I can talk a little bit about that in my own personal space, where, for example, my Krishna conscious practicing Krishna conscious, where sometimes I feel I'm so helpless and I just have Krishna on my side and I feel kind of weak and I would want to give up. And I think about how Arjuna, Krishna told him, no matter what, Arjuna, you will get up and you will fight. So in my moments of weakness are when I wake up in the morning and I feel that I'm doing my chanting and I just feel sometimes a bit lonely because I just feel lonely in the sense that if your spouse is more aligned with your chanting and more affair with it, it becomes that much easier. And because in my case it's not, I feel like I want to give up. And I just remember every time Krishna's words to Arjuna, no, Arjuna, don't give up. You must wake up. You must get up and fight. So my chanting, yeah, those words spoken by Krishna helps me in my chanting daily. And the other thing is moments of weakness sometimes where, you know, I always think that we are not this body, or we're a spirit soul. When, you know, the different dilemmas, like the different things that happen in our life, we read so much about it in the newspaper, we read about it, you know, we hear about it at work. And every time that happens to us, I think, oh no, why am I lamenting? Why am I crying? I'm not this body, we are a spirit soul. And like, for example, yesterday I was at the mandir and somebody just had somebody went unconscious, and I just heard today that he passed away. And I was just lamenting about it. I was like so sad about it because I saw him there. We saw him doing his prayers and, you know, everything. And I was like so upset about it. And then I went back again, you know, what Krishna said, don't lament, Arjuna. You are not this body, you're a spirit soul. Yeah, so that's it from my side.
Hare Krishna, you done, Veronica? Okay, can't hear her. All
Hare
right,
Krishna,
so
Mataji, it's Priscilla.
Hare Krishna.
Can I contribute something, please?
Absolutely.
So we spoke a little bit about violence. When is violence justified? So, like Paramatma Prabhu said, when the Kshatriya by their nature, when they are meant to fight, but when they fight on religious principles, it's justified, and they also get heavenly planets if they are killed.
Yes.
And the second point is that when violence, so, in the killing of animals, when it is done in sacrifice, then it is not considered violence. So, so the sacrificial animal killing by Brahmanas, the animal, because it's in sacrifice, then the animals immediately get a human body without an evolutionary cycle. And the Brahmana also gets benefits. So the animal and the Brahmana performing the violent act, seemingly violent act, gets some benefit. So that's on the violence. I would like to also share on the
yeah, that's excellent. That's a nice point. Yeah?
2.21. So
yes.
Verse 2.21 says that no one can kill the soul. The soul is indestructible. It is eternal. It is unborn and immutable. And so, in this, this is actually a very important verse because it is telling us about the nature of the soul. And for that reason, we should not be afraid. And then referencing to 2.7, it says that in the cycle of, it is inevitable to die. In the cycle of birth and death, by the very fact that we are born, we are going to die. Yes. So, and that is due to our karma. But so it is unavoidable, and you must do your duty, and you shouldn't, he's talking to them, Arjuna, you shouldn't cry about this, you shouldn't be afraid. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much for that wonderful contribution, Priscilla Mataji. Very important. I like that you drew attention to, we discussed this previously as well when we did chapter 2. When is violence justified in relation to animal sacrifices? Okay, so in that era where Brahmanas, they were qualified Brahmanas, they did animal sacrifice by chanting a mantra. But it was not to kill that animal, to enjoy its flesh. They did it to give the animal a rejuvenated life. So they would chant, very expertly chant these mantras. The animal would enter into the fire, into the yajna, and exit on the other end with a rejuvenated body. So the Brahmana accrued some good credit for that, and obviously so did the animal. Okay, so that's a different kind of violence. It's seemingly kind of violence, but not really violence. And if Krishna ordered Arjuna to fight, then that is authority. Isn't that so? Because Krishna is the Lord. And he knew exactly why he's ordering Arjuna to stand up and fight, because he wanted to establish the principles of dharma. And Veronica Mataji, coming back to your points, when you spoke about dilemmas, see, in 2.6, Arjuna says, it really relates to what you're saying. Because chapter 2.6, Arjuna is saying, nor do we know which is better, conquering them or being conquered by them, speaking about the opposing party. If we killed the sons of Dhritarashtra, we should not care to live. Yet they are now standing before us on the battlefield. Arjuna is totally confused at that point.
Yes.
And lamenting so much that he did not want to do. He said he does not want to engage in this ghastly warfare. He did not want to enjoy a blood-stained kingdom. And he puts through very, very strong arguments as to why he didn't want to fight.
This morning when I heard the news, yes, that's true. This morning when I heard this news, I actually went to text 11, chapter 2, text 11. It's exactly what happened to me. Where it says the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, while speaking learned words, you are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. Those who are wise, they are made neither for the living nor for the dead. Yes. So it speaks directly to how I was feeling this morning.
I was getting to that, yeah. But then what happened after 6? That's the point I'm coming to, Veronica. What happened after Arjuna, up to chapter 2, verse number 6? Arjuna was putting forth strong arguments as to why he does not want to fight. And then what happened immediately after that? In chapter 7, which I call the turning point of the Bhagavad Gita, one of my favorite verses, where Arjuna then totally surrendered to Krishna. And the friendship changed from friends to that of
disciple and teacher,
spiritual master and disciple, guru and disciple, as teacher and disciple, because Arjuna took that step to surrender completely to the Lord. And he said, and I'll read it out, now I am confused about my duty and have lost all composure because of miserly weakness. In this condition, I am asking you to tell me for certain what is best for me. Now I am your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. Now, this is what we should adopt in our life. We should apply this personally. When we face these challenges, we need to understand that we are quite insignificant little parts and parcels floating around in millions of universes. We've got to understand that firstly. It's a very humbling thought. And only once you are humble can you approach a spiritual master. And when you approach a spiritual master in this kind of mood, then the knowledge flows. And from that point onwards, Krishna instructs Arjuna for the rest of the Bhagavad Gita. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Anybody else want to contribute? Madhuri Mataji, you?
Hi. I put a couple of comments in the chat section.
Okay.
Just some thoughts that I was going through my mind. But
all right, let me open that up. Getting this and I can access it more easily. Chat. I don't see anything in the chat box. Riaz Prabhu, you already posted it?
Yeah, I did. I'm not sure why it didn't come up. I can see it here. It says to...
It came to me, Mataji, because I'm the administrator of the thing.
Is it? Oh, okay. Maybe you want to read it to us then, Paramatma Prabhu, can you read that out to us, please? Since you can view it.
Well, Prabhu first said that's the best type of death in the mandir while in worship. And the second point, he said violence is justified when the aggressor is not willing to find a peaceful solution. An equal measure of physical aggression is justified.
Absolutely. Because that's a very good point there, Riyaz Prabhu, where, you know, the aggressor does not want to reach any compromise, because all other methods failed before this war took place. This war of the Mahabharata. It took place only after all other methods were exhausted. And the opposing party did not want to compromise in any way at all. You know, the Pandavas said, even give us a little village to rule and we'll be happy. We don't want the entire kingdom. Because that's not what we're after. We just want to do our duty. Duty is very important, and they are Kshatriyas. They needed to rule. Ruling was their job, was their duty, and they needed to rule. But even that, Duryodhana and his brothers did not want to give. So yeah, if all other methods have been exhausted, then violence is justified. That's an excellent.
Just a comment on the just a comment on the devotee that mentioned that she was at the mandir and somebody collapsed and passed away at that session. You know, sometimes you put that into perspective, and you know, like people at some point ask themselves, how will it end for me? You know, how will I, you know, my life come to an end?
Yeah.
And when you put it into perspective, yeah, you feel sad that somebody got, you know, that passed away in the mandir. But when you really put it into perspective, that's actually a blessed way to go. And the perfect place.
Absolutely. Absolute blessing. Yes. 100%. Because that person's consciousness must have been so nice, in such a good way, to have passed away in the mandir or in the temple. It's not an easy opportunity. Not everybody gets that opportunity. It's a spiritualized environment, and therefore, it would have definitely assisted him in his onward journey. So, yeah, definitely. I mean, we can only but pray to have deaths like that, honestly. As Riyaz Prabhu said, we don't know what our end is going to be like. Where are we going to be? How is it going to end? What is our frame of mind going to be? And if you're in the temple, it's more likely that your frame of mind is spiritualized. And that's what we want. Because Krishna says it here as well. He says in Bhagavad Gita, your last thought determines your next body. Isn't it?
Yes.
And that's what we're striving for. That's why we do devotional service. That's why we engage in chanting every day. That's why we engage in all these spiritual activities. Because we want to, at the end of our lifetime, we want to remember the Lord. That we have an easy exit, and we exit to the right destination. You were saying something, Veronica? Sorry?
Oh, that is so true. You know, he was chanting. So that's 100% true. And I found solace when I heard the news. I felt, you know, as I said, I felt so, I started to lament. Then I thought about the fact that it was a beautiful time, what a beautiful place, and he was chanting. So that was a good thing. Yeah.
Yes. So. Oh, excellent. Okay, so whom else do we have here?
Oh, Hare Krishna, Mataji, I just want to add one more point. I was reading, and it says that the highest achievement, the highest perfection of human life is to remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead at the end of life.
Correct. Krishna says it here in Bhagavad Gita as well. Think of me and you shall come to me. So we must think of him. And how do we think of him? Back to the same point. Engage your activities, spiritualize your activities for the satisfaction and the pleasure of Krishna. Be a God-conscious person, a Krishna-conscious person. Okay, because that's practice. Practice makes perfect. So if you want to think of him at the time of death, you've got to practice now. We spoke about life's final exam. I told you all about this book by His Holiness Giriraj Maharaj. Everybody should read that book. And there's so many real life stories of how people left their bodies. You practice daily. If there's a big exam that you are preparing for, if you do not prepare daily, when it comes to the exam, the likelihood of you passing is going to be slim to none, right? You're probably going to fail the exam. Likewise, with spiritual life, if you do not practice every day, when your final exam comes, the time for you to leave your body, you probably fail. Fail in the sense that you won't be thinking of the Lord. Then what happens? When you fail, you're coming back to this material world to suffer the pangs of material nature over and over again. Madhuri Mataji, you wanted to speak earlier on?
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Yes, about leaving the body, and remembering the Lord. So if you practice every day the abhyas, every day, every breath must be remembered all the time with in the name of Krishna. So when you're exiting the body, when the soul is exiting, you, because of that practice all the time, you will remember Bhagwan Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. See, Kadruta Mataji has joined us here. Kadruta Mataji, we've got it up on the screen, the 4 topics that we were meant to discuss today. Would you like to contribute to any, or have you prepared on any?
Hare Krishna. What I want to say is that Krishna has his plan, like these were from Kurukshetra, and we haven't anything to do, just to accept what is coming, like destiny. And of course, Arjuna in the end understand, because Krishna want to reestablish the Yudhishthira kingdom and want to get out from these words and miserable persons, and many kings were killed. And like this is our in our life, we can do the same. We can accept everything, good or bad, is coming to us, and
Yes.
to think that when we are in danger, Krishna never let his devotees to perish, and all the time Krishna protect, and especially protect whom are in most danger and who are most grieved. Like this, we can remember Kunti Devi, her prayers, please give me calamities because they are like benediction. And if we are thinking like this, never we haven't a reason to lamentate. Another lamentation is what I remember, lamentation of Maharaj Ketu when his boy was poisoned. The same, one lamentation like Arjuna. But in the end, everything will be good. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Kadruta Mataji. Thank you for your contribution. Anybody else? Dean Prabhu, would you like to say anything?
Now, I'm finding the discussion very, very interesting, and I'm just contemplating a few things when I was looking at what personally happened to me about 8 to 9 years ago. And I was wondering, maybe Krishna had a purpose for me, and that's why I didn't pass away at that point in time. Yeah. So actually, what happened was I was hijacked and locked in my car boot for almost 7 hours, and it was a hot day, and it was like someone put me into an oven and turned the heat up to full 270 degrees or whatever it is maximum. So in all accounts, according to the doctors, I should have actually died after that 7 hours. I shouldn't have been alive. But what happened was my mother and always told me that whenever I'm in trouble, because I never really believed in all of this, I always was into the science of evolution and all of that, because I always studied physics and all of that stuff.
Okay, a scientist.
Yeah. So at that point in time, while I was in the booth just past Dinginslovo, I started chanting the Hare Krishna, Hare Rama mantra like I was instructed by my mom. And when that happened, because I've been trying like for almost an hour trying to get out of the boat, and I couldn't. I was almost completely dehydrated. Basically, I was starting to feel like I was going to black out. And then I started chanting, and by the sixth chant, the boat just opened. And I just held the boat, but I couldn't open it because it was an old car, and those old cars, you can't just release the boat like that. Yeah. So while the car was moving, I dived onto the road and I rolled over. So these guys, two of them, they're much bigger than me, much bigger boats. They actually stopped the car, they reversed. And my car was literally traveling almost at full speed. So they reversed, and then I got into a fight with them.
Sure.
And then they basically assaulted me. I took about 220 blows, both to my head, from all the way down to my lower back. I suffered a spinal injury as well, where I had a hairline fracture from my one. And then essentially they took me into the Mondes forest near Richards Bay. And and at that point, the guy pulled out the gun. The other one had a set of shears. They wanted to chop my fingers off because I didn't give them the money they wanted. I didn't actually have any money. I was a teacher at that time at school. And at that point, I think if the police were about 5 seconds late, I would have been dead. So they saved me by 5 seconds. I just heard these gunshots, and I was just told to roll under the car. And the same night, I came home, saw my children, and I was admitted to hospital. And the doctor said they just cannot understand how I actually survived that, because I had like over 220 blows, and I had black clots from my brain all the way down, all over my body. Yeah. So this discussion on violence, it actually just settled a few things for me, like, because I also now, because of that, I ended up actually taking up coming to the temples and started actually trying to understand this entire Krishna consciousness movement, and exactly, and then I actually got to read the Bhagavad Gita, but that was a few years back, and obviously I'm trying to remember. It's quite a lot to try and remember. It's not easy to remember everything. And and that's how I actually got into this, and I also got into martial arts as well. So I'm starting to find the reason that maybe it is justified, the dilemma that I was going through. Should I be practicing martial arts because it is a form of violence, or should I stop? But I realized that it actually is. If I'm using it to do good, then it is fine. If I'm using it to save someone's life or something, then it is fine. Yeah. Well, anyway, that's my contribution from my very personal side.
Well, thank you very much for exchanging that personal experience with us, Dean Prabhu. We really appreciate it, because on this platform, we all can learn from each other. And it was kind of you to share that. And I'm really sorry for what you've been through. Really hectic, sure. And I wanted to say, coming from a science background, I want to ask you, did you read the book Life Comes from Life?
I haven't read that one, but I did read Srila Prabhupada's. Well, actually, when I pray now, I always am thankful to Srila Prabhupada, because I read his book, The Science of Self-Realization. It actually opened up my eyes before I started going on to the Gita. And then I started. I've started reading the pastimes of Krishna. And but I haven't finished it, because I think the book went into storage. Someone put it into storage because we had to move out of the house. So all of it is still in boxes, and I'm waiting to open the box so I can actually go back and continue.
All right, but if you've read, that's right. If you've read Science of Self-Realization, then that's fine, because it contains an extract. Life Comes from Life is contained in that book. So it would have covered. It would have covered. That book.
Okay.
Darwin's theory. Life comes from life and not matter. All those sections would have been covered. But yeah, if you get a chance to read just Life Comes from Life, it's a very thin book. You can.
I think I will do that.
Access it online as well. It would be nice.
Oh, okay.
Okay. But thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much. So you see, sometimes certain things happen to us, and it may seem like it's a real tragedy, but it also comes as a blessing in disguise. Okay, so devotees think like this as well. When something bad happens to them, They say it could have been worse, but Krishna had his hand in the whole scenario. And he protected me. It could have been worse, but he protected me. And then they get a realization that they need to firm their sadhana and work harder in their spiritual life. So, yeah, so sometimes these kind of things are actually blessings in disguise. It draws us closer to Krishna, and that's what we want. Right. So I think we've covered. Does anybody else want to speak? Has everybody had a turn? Shalina Mataji, you spoke, eh? Yeah, you did.
Yes,
Right?
I did. Thank you.
Okay. So why did Krishna, nobody spoke on this, why did Krishna, who is all loving, incite Arjuna to war? What do you think? Krishna is all loving, agreed? Unmute yourselves, agreed or disagree?
Agree, Mataji.
You'll agree, right? Right, Krishna is all loving.
Hmm.
He's God,
Yeah.
right? So if he's all
Yes.
loving, can a loving person incite someone to do violence? Does that make sense? It may not make sense to us, right? On a material platform, but Krishna did it. So now why is he all loving? He is all loving. So why did he incite Arjuna to war? Madhuri Mataji? Why did he ask Arjuna to fight if he's all loving?
He wanted,
Because he wants to establish, right?
yes,
Yes.
he wanted Arjun to see the right of this war, and he must fight for his rights.
Yes.
Yes, because Arjuna needed to do his duty. He's a Kshatriya. He could not stand there, flee from the battlefield and go and sit in the forest and meditate like a sannyasi, because he was not a Brahmana, he was not a sannyasi.
Yes.
He was placed in the ashram of a Kshatriya and he needed to fight for what was due to him. 1. 2, as Paramatma Prabhu pointed out to us earlier on, there are 6 types of aggressors. These people, Duryodhana and his brothers, the Kauravas, they were aggressors on many levels. They even burnt, when Arjun and his brothers were in exile, they even burnt their house.
The wax palace, yes.
They burnt it, yes. So that's the person who burns houses is also an aggressor. Who steals land is an aggressor. Can you see how Duryodhana and his brothers are falling into these categories? Okay, so right, and then what did Krishna need to do? He needed to establish the principles of dharma. So chapter 4, verse 7. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata apyuthanam dharmasya tadatmanam chijamyaham. Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, or descendant of Bharata, and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself. So Krishna descended himself and he instructed this war to do. Okay, I think we can close up here for today, and next week we shall do the remaining 2 verses that we didn't cover. And we can go into Nachingadev Pranams now. All right, thank you very much for your contributions. It was such a lovely interactive session today. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you. Anybody wants to sing Nachingadev Pranams? Kalina Mataji, you want to try today?
Yes, sure. Thank you, Mata.
Okay, so let me just go in here and quickly share my screen again. Everybody has the words. Right, there we go. Go for it.
Namaste Narasimhaya Praladaladaine Hiranyakashi Purvakshaha Shrilatankanakalaye Ito Nirsimha Parato Nirsimha Yato Yato Yamitato Nirsimha Bahir Nirsimho Hridaye Nirsimha Narashim Amadim Sharanam Prapade Tava kara kamalavare nakam adbhuta shingam dalita hiranyakashipu tanu vrinda keshavadrita narahari rupa jai jagadisha hare jai jagadisha hare jai jagadisha hare Jaya Nashingadev, 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 Jaya Nashingadev, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Lakshmi Nashinga, Jaya Lakshmi Nashinga, Lakshmi Nashinga, Jaya Lakshmi Nashinga, Nitai Gura Haribol, Haribol, Nitai Gura Haribol, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada.
Shri Lakshmi Narasimha Deva Bhagavan ki jai, Bhaktivinoda Maharaj ki jai. Om Namah Om Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivargacharya Stotra, His Divine Grace of H. Adanarinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Namah Om Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivargacharya Stotra, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhatta ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan ki jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Mathura Dham Mayapur Jagannath Puri Pandharpur Arvadi Kurukshetra Ayodhya Dwarika Dham ki jai. Shri Ganga Mahi ki jai, Yamuna Mahi ki jai, Bhakti Devi Tulasi Devi Maharani ki jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrind ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrind ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Shri Prabhupada. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha. Kripasin Dubhya eva Patitana Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namah. Let's go to Vaishnav Puja, Grantara Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Thank you, dear devotees. Veronica Mataji, can I ask you to stay back with me for just a little bit after this? Thank you. See you all next week. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Thank you.